Okay, welcome back. Always amazed at what change can do. I don't do a lot of myself. They're actually quite interesting. With this particular job here, we're back in our job. We're doing the barrier and the decision between the two strings, these two strings here, which one's higher and lower, and going through that process. Excuse me. We're now just going to look at the actual boxing. So and we're going to create this subgrade here. So we have a look at the commands inside the MTF file. Down the bottom here under the fixed, you have this one called boxing. Okay, there's a analyze subgrade, and to finish off this session, Mick will have a run through that one. It's quite interesting. There's a name grade one, another triple one which I won't go into, and a insert intersect, which is the one that I'm going to do for the boxing. There's also a cross 4 point one, and as I said, that's sort of one that we did here, where you pick a point, specify a grade, and it just goes out from the point. That's what that one's about. We can't do all of them. So basically what it is when you look at your boxing, excuse me, and so the idea is, as I said before, you pick 2 points on your road surface. In this case here, it's going to be my centre and my edge of shoulder out here. So those 2 points you pick, right? Then you specify a name of the road, you know, like the road grade, batter, those sorts of things, and that's the surface you're going to use. If you thought back to anyone that's done the intersect advance in the V10 boxing, you pick 2 points, or you pick 1 point and you say grade here and name grade, or a cross 4 from this point. So instead of having to pick those points time and time again, we can actually say, oh, I'm going to pick these 2 points, I'm going to call this grade something. So as we get on the road, that will be a uniform. It doesn't matter if it's super elevated, no matter what that road grade does, your name grade will actually reflect that. Same goes for the batter. So I need to know this grade here, and I need to know that grade there. So I'm going to give them both a user-defined name. All right, so hence inside here, my first one is a name grade. I'm calling it roadway. So it is as simple as that. And as I said, there is an option there. So when you pick these, there is an option to pick external strings. So if you are trying to pick up a grade from an existing road or something like that, you could pick strings that were not created in your MTF file. All right, but here I'm picking 2 strings that were created in my MTF file. Right, so I'm picking those 2, I'm calling that roadway. Did I change that, did I? Right, so this one here comes up, I've got a same thing, I've got a batter, and we're going to produce the batter down from there to there. So that's the 2 name grades that you're after. So basically, those 2 will create that intersection for me. The intersection is this point here. So we go back into our real world job. This is the point that I'm after. So inside your normal boxing in version 10, you'd use the intersect advanced option to find that point. So inside this one here, I'm doing the intersect advance. So I'm looking at this and saying, okay, what layer am I going to put it on? And again, we're talking about this layers again. I'm back to that because I want this to be not on my design layer. I want it to be part of my subgrade. So I'm starting to now create strings below my design that you would normally have done inside your MTF file, and you would have done inside your boxing and gone and selected all that. And inside your apply many file, you would have had layer names for all your boxing. Okay, now doing it this way, you create the layers that you want for your particular subgrade, and then at the end of it you say, and we'll show you in a moment, what model that goes onto. And that's all it means. So here I'm just picking up and I'm creating a string. So this is a string called S1. Okay, there's also a stop option. So if you looked at the intersect advance in the boxing, if this batter actually goes below this point, okay, then you've got the same choices that you have inside the normal boxing as in version 10. You have intersect extend segment or actually intersect and stop. So in other words, if this thing was deep enough, it would actually, and it was below your table drain, it would stop here instead. Otherwise, it would turn around and extend that way. That's all it is. It's the same as the one you have in version 10. Just you have to give it a name. Okay, so I just give it a name, stop point. So and then it just asks you questions. It says, okay, what's the name grade you want up the top? So the string is EPL or EPPL, this one. I've got carried away with the L's. That's that point there. Okay, what name grade do I want to use? I'm picking up roadway. So obviously those name grades come up there, so the more you have created above here, the more choices you have. So I pick roadway, then I turn around and say, okay, what point over here in my design, and what batter do I want to do? I'm going to pick up batter drain. So all I've done, I've specified 2 points, the 2 batters. It will now create this point here for me. And that's the idea of the simple intersect. It's not that difficult. Once you've got those 2 name grades, that's hey presto. It'll go and create those things. The good part about it is the idea of all this is you put it on another layer. Because if you imagine all these things that we're doing here, if you inserted things, started that, it would all affect your design. If you start to put in barriers and all those sorts of things, it all affects your design. Because these layers are running, in this case, under your design as an actual sub-layer to do my pavement, it doesn't affect your design at all. It creates that point for me, but I also need this point here. So this is the same as doing a vertex command in your normal boxing. Okay, so it's the old favourite, the insert absolute command. So it's a great command. Just simply says what point I'm going to create. I'm going to create it on a layer called sub, and it's going to be called S2. What point am I going to pick up in my design? I'm going to pick up EPL, which is this point here, and I'm going to be 0.4 deep. Okay, so that's the same as you doing a vertex command inside your boxing. You just say it's 0.4 deep, and that's all there is to it. So again, you could get in and create another one under here called sub2, and it would then be the same process, but another layer. So you're starting to build up the layers as you would normally do. So when you look at these options as well, as I said before in the first part we talked about, that these strings don't actually appear anywhere, because in your apply many, as I said before, the models here, there's nothing in here, okay? Because all those layer models that you're creating, right, you have to then tell it what model that it's going to go onto. It does not go back through the old boxing command like the MTF file does. The only thing that picked up out of that those 2 models was my design layer, because I used the layer design. So that's the process there of running that. So I have to be able to put these onto something. So what sort of these strings do I want? It was a bit like that other job before with the interim and the ultimate. I cherry picked what I wanted. So here I have to turn around and say, okay, well, what strings is going to create my subgrade layer? So basically, I can also pick strings that I want. So sometimes I might want all the strings of that sub, and sometimes I do. So that's the idea of this left all or an actual selection of strings. So in this case here, I do want those 2 strings that we created on that layer, one called S2, one called S1 and SP. So I just say layer all sub, and it puts on a layer called design MCA, design substrings. Okay, so it puts them all on there for me. Right, that's okay. But where do I get that nice little shaded cyan thing from? Where the hell did that come from? Okay, so that little thing is a shape or a tri-mesh that we're starting to build up through this whole process that we're going through. And by tomorrow we'll be doing lots of great stuff. But it's nice to see where it all comes from and how it's produced in the MTF file. Because when I run stuff tomorrow, it's a click of a button and it does all these things behind the scenes for you. But in reality, it's still writing snippets for you, but it's writing these commands, these sorts of things. The name grade, the intersect. So it's not doing anything marvellous, it's just doing what I'm showing you here manually. But obviously you're going to be bored doing it manually. So you're going to end up saying, I want a snippet that does all this for me. So basically when you do the actual create shape, you can create a shape of any combination of strings. And so in this case here, I've combined my 2 design surface strings with the subgrade strings to create my shape, okay, which is that cyan coloured tri-mesh that you see on the screen. If you want to keep all the strings totally inside there that belongs to that particular shape, I'd have to do another insert absolute copy, and I would copy the 2 points on the top here. So I'd end up with 5 strings that all belong to the sub layer. But I'm being a bit cheeky. I'm mixing them between design and sub. I know Mick cringes when I do this. But if you want to keep them all the same, then just duplicate that string, you end up with 4 strings that you can create your shape out of. But that's all basically the shape how you create the tri-mesh. You just say, what points? I want that point, and that one. Okay, and what's the name of the tri-mesh? So you notice there's also an option here at the top to create a strings model at the same time. Now that's if you want to, right? So I didn't really want to do that because I'm using the design strings on the top and I don't want to put another copy of those design strings again. All right, so I just said, no, I'll do it afterwards. So in the next command down the bottom, I just created the two strings that I S1 and S2. So you've got the choice between what you want to do. You can do it all at the same time when you create the shape, or you can do the strings at any time you want. So tomorrow we will show you a lot more dynamic things than this, and you'll be able to run all these different boxing. The whole idea of this was just to show you that the commands are in there. You set up a name grade by picking 2 points, and you run the intersect command that says exactly that. So that's the process. So it's not rocket science, and it's very much aligned to your boxing that you are doing in version 10 now. So hopefully there won't be too many commands. Having said that, you'll probably find yourself running the options tomorrow because they do all the work for you. So inside some of these layer commands, we'll have a look at the job here that uses another layer. I might stick to the little shapes at the time. We'll come back and have a look. This one's pretty straightforward. It's very similar to the one I just created. This was our job before, where we've got our final design. We want to create that. Okay. Now, that's the final design with my interim and my part and my part footpath. Okay, remember I've got the section here. I've got the ultimate footpath plus the drain and stuff. I want to create those services. I don't want to do visualization. I don't want to do the triangulation. I don't want to do the coloured polygons. I don't want to do all that sort of stuff because I don't have to do that anymore. Because I can come up to here and I can do a trimesh shape like we did with the boxing in the previous job, but give it no thickness. I haven't got the points to pick. I've only got the 2 surface points up the top. Doesn't matter. The trimesh will still create the surface for you. If you give it the right visualization colour, it automatically vises for you. If you have the visualization module, I suppose. So what it basically means is in here, all I have to do is create those surfaces. So on the side over here, I've got a road left. So how do I create that shape? Again, I pick up a thing, go down to shape. And just like we did before, I go down here, I say, okay, I want a choice, I want design, C1L, C2L, which is those 2 strings there. What colour I want to call it, okay, and it creates a shape for me. So those 2 strings I picked do not form a rectangle, they're not forming pavement, they're just forming 2 points on a surface. So you can do all that, and in this case here, I'm doing my visualization. It also gives you an area when you inquire on this trimesh that it's actually creating for you. So you do get an area of what that trimesh is. For the ones that we did before and we'll show you tomorrow, those ones that are the solid ones, or the trimesh shape, they give you a volume. So you get the 2 choices. So this one here, I've just gone through and I've created the different shapes by picking which strings I want. So now I want the actual shoulder, which is that one there, which is the light grey one. I'm just using the interim design now. I'm picking up C2L and edge of shoulder from my layer choice. I'm not using the design ones. And I'm giving the appropriate vis shoulder colour and so forth. If I drop down to my drain, now I'm doing the drain here, which is the interim part of my road. So I'm simply just going to go through here and say, what strings do I want? I want the edge of shoulder, I want the drain 1, drain 2, drain 3. I'm going to call it grass 2. So I'm getting my visualization instantly done for me, as well as an area. And again, finishing off the last part, I want the footpath. And the footpath is obviously vis concrete 2. It's creating just that surface, which is picking up my design, footpath left, footpath right, footpath 1 and 2. And last of all, I do the grass shape. So it's quite an easy way to build up your visualization. They having to worry about these sorts of things. And I said they will, you run these options as you would normally do. So if it goes up and stops an intersection and starts again, that's the process you would do it. You run these particular things and it would do the shape up to the first part, then redo the next shape from there on. So that's just a quick idea of how you produce these shapes manually inside the MTF file. Because there's nothing worse than having some of these great things we show and the run snippets and all happens like that. And if you don't really understand that, yes, I can do that, and it's using basic commands, you then tend maybe not to use it because you think it's not for you, but at least now you can see that you can do those things inside the MTF file. So when you do run those sorts of things, besides doing these sorts of shapes, we also can run, and we're touching a little bit on what we're going to show tomorrow, but it also lends back to the layers that we used before. Like we've used layers here, we've used the ultimate interim to try and mix all this together. But there are times where you can just turn around and say, I want to create a barrier, I want to create a tunnel. So I go back to my job here. Right, it's inside my design. This hasn't changed since the last time. Right, and I'll go and run a MTF file here with tunnel on it. Right, so inside here's this lovely big grey thing. That's my tunnel. What it looks like is this. Okay, so we'll have a bit of a drive, have a quick look at it, and then we'll show you how it's done. All right, so as we go for a drive on this job, that tunnel there is the trimesh shape. Okay, so just like the barrier in the middle and all sorts of things that we were doing before, on the right hand side was all the different shapes for the surfaces, just like we did in the little job before for the interim. This is a shape that defines my tunnel. And as we drive a bit further, this is where the road's lower than the other side, and then it starts to come back up again. So that's where that little barrier there was changing from one side to the other. And as we come out the end, we then come out the end of the tunnel, and we've got our area where we've got the rock batter. So it's all inside the one MTF file, and doing all those decisions, all those checks for you. So to show you just roughly how that works is inside my job. We'll do a little bit of this tomorrow, but I thought I'd show it now. We draw a shape of what the tunnel is going to look like. Okay, the tunnel sits at, this is my insertion point. So inside my actual job, I bring up the MTF file for this. I'm starting to use this layer idea again. So inside my right side tunnel, before I show you how to create this simple little trimesh, this is how I'm going to attach it. Okay, so I want to attach it to a string that's in my design, and I want to be, wrong one. Right, it's actually an external string. I talked about this before. It's actually the alignment string, which is my barrier. Remember that I talked before about that string I created down the middle of the road, right, which was the position for my concrete barrier. That's the string I'm now going to use to wrap my tunnel around. So I'm able to use the external string option. I said the insert absolute modifier is going to be your best friend because of the ability it has with these picking not only design strings, layer strings, it also allows you to pick external strings. So I'm able to pick the other alignment string, I'm able to put it onto a layer in my MTF file called tunnel, I'll give it a name, and it goes the extent of whatever that string is. Right, so the idea is then once I run that, I've got this string in my job, and again, it's a string that I don't necessarily have to see. I don't have to have it on a model. I know it's in my apply many, and I know I can use it. So what I can do is if I come up to this tunnel option, I can run, and this is what we're going to do a lot of this tomorrow, I can come up into here, and I can go under the create, or snippets. I'm not a little bit used to this because before we had them all under the new menu. This is the one I'm after. Right, so all you need to do to create this is to start with to have your shape drawn. This is quite a large string. It's not like a little concrete barrier. It's a whole big tunnel, but this is how I did the tunnel. So you basically just turn around, give it a name. Not sure if I've even got one called that. I'll call it the whole name there. Trimesh color. Turn around. I've got an option to do model prefix, or I can give it a model name. So if I type in here DES mesh strings and just design mesh. We're doing a fair bit of this tomorrow as well. So I'll call it TUN. Right, so all I do now is I go from profile. So what have I drawn? So I've drawn a string, turn around and I say, how do I want to, first of all I pick the string. So it takes all the vertices as you've drawn. So it's like having a block and that sort of thing. This is 0, 0. That's going to be the insertion point of whatever the string I've created. and it's going to take that shape. So the process I've got here, I've got different ways I can add this or attach this particular snippet, which has the definitions for the mesh. I can use layer, name, or layer/name. What the layer/name means is that it allows you to do what I just did before. Create a layer called tunnel, create a string with a name on it, and I want to use that string. You could also use a design string if you had a design string that was represented where you wanted it to go. And that's all there is to it. And you get a process, and it creates this snippet for you. Behind the scene, what's in the actual snippet, I'm not going to go into too much more of that because I don't want to, because not what's going to be done tomorrow. It just does a whole lot of insert absolute commands. That's all it does. Okay, so not commands that you can't do, but why would you want to do them all? So when you basically come to the snippet and you run the snippet, and running one that I've already prepared before, it comes up with these things. Remember I said attached to what layer? So it asks you. So you type in tunnel, that's the one I want. What layer is it on? TUN. It also gives you a suffix. So the idea of that is that if you use it more than once down your job, it creates individual strings with the A, B, C, D added onto it. So then you don't end up with duplicate strings and that sort of stuff. And that's basically how it runs a tunnel for you. As I said, I apologise for being a little bit, that's the way it's going, but there's a lot more stuff to show tomorrow, and I just want to give you a bit of an idea. But it is as simple as that. That is a trimesh, and Mick showed you a little bit of an idea before about the tunnel and his little sluice thing, which is not as, obviously mine's not as exciting as that. But it is just a shape. So whatever shape you can draw on there, you can just simply run a tunnel. This is the one we're talking about where it's just running as a shape, and he will looking at the tunnel being normal to your road and that sort of stuff. I'm not running the actual tunnel option that he showed before. I'm just running it inside your MTF file. So so those sorts of things are really useful in that regard. And again, we'll have a quick look at some of these sorts of things here. We'll just do one or two just to whet your appetite for what we can do tomorrow. So inside, this is the one we did the other day, which was highly successful. And using snippets to create the ones that were supplied in your library, right, to create the road profiles for curb and barrier mountables and driveways and all that sort of stuff. What also will be available there will be these things, and we'll show you tomorrow how we create these. But basically what I can do is I can go to snippet now, and because I'm in my library, I can go and pick up my AC. And that AC is one created by that macro that we'll go through. It creates the shape for you and creates your pavement. And it's all name standard, so it knows that you're going to pick curb, invert, and all sorts of stuff, so it knows what to do. So if I turn around there and then run that and apply that, if I add my model in, and sort of going one step too far then, but no, I've got to redraw the view. Right, so I can turn around and start to build up my pavement. There it's doing all my pavement all the way along the road, just like the other one. So we're starting to do these sort of standard conventions. We'll do one more before we'll start to finish off on a few other things. But again, I go to snippet. The idea of this, I'm just trying to show that, hey, it's all library controlled. I can do all this myself. It's not just the fact that I did it up here and then you basically go away and say, well, I can't do that. I haven't got time. So now at least you can run these things. And if I go and run in my curb, I'm now starting to pick up my curb profiles. This is the sort of stuff that we've standard library. I'll show you how to create those tomorrow. But this is the standard shapes and the type of thing that with these trimeshes, that's simple as anything. It's simple to create your pavement. It's simple to create your curb. And to create the visualisation I did for the interim design road, and it's really getting to a stage is why not? You know, a number of times you get people saying, "Oh, we haven't got time to do that. Haven't got time to do that." You know, so if you do have these things, you follow a good standard naming convention. If it's as quick as grabbing them out of the library like I did, why wouldn't you do it? Just before I grab Mick's got a little session to do on analyse subgrade, which is links towards the pavement that we were doing before, and a little bit of the smarts involved there. I just wanted to try and revisit something that it was very, very important, and I did a crap job on. And so I just want to make sure you understand how good this is. This was the job yesterday that we talked about, where I placed components, and I've simplified the component now. I haven't got the big roundabout one, so it makes a little simple intersection with a bus bay on one end and a cul-de-sac on the other. And as I said, these are components. They also can just be super alignments that have got referencing, as long as they've got some sort of computator idea in them. And as I said yesterday, I'm just repeating this, there's no chain involved, nothing. It just knows about what strings belongs to what and automatically updates for you. So I can do this. Now that is cool in anyone's book. Now, to do, you're either amazed or hopefully you're just amazed. But the amount of work to do that, the amount of times I've showed you run chains and all sorts of stuff and go and recalc and how to change in there, run everything, and it was great. This is doing it in real time. I'm not adding anything else to this. It's automatically doing part of the move command and so forth. So by all means start to understand that is quite a advent to the alignment string. If I had a nice chain like Matt said, I would be able to recalculate all those things, but I'd have to just go and read them one at a time. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea on those layers and stuff like that. We are trying to build this up in a approach, not just jump in and say, here's a snippet that does everything for you, and you don't really understand what it's doing behind the scenes. That was the idea of this. So hopefully at the end of it, you do understand what it's doing behind the scenes. So let's get a small session for your subgrade, and then we can just run you through it.